The transmission came on a quiet Tuesday morning. Every screen on Earth flickered at the same moment. Television sets, computer monitors, and even digital billboards in busy city centers all displayed the same image. A creature with pale blue skin and large black eyes stared into the cameras. Its voice was cold and filled with ancient pride. "People of Earth," the alien spoke in perfect English, though its mouth barely moved. "We are the Empire. 6,000 years ago, our ancestors visited your primitive world. We planted seeds of knowledge among your earliest civilizations. We gave you fire. We taught you farming. We showed you the stars. You were nothing but animals living in caves, and we lifted you toward the light." The creature paused, letting its words sink into the minds of billions of humans watching across the planet. "Now we return to claim what belongs to us. Your world, your resources, your very existence. You have one Earth rotation to surrender completely. Resistance will result in total destruction. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. You cannot win against us." The transmission ended. Screens returned to normal. For a moment, there was silence around the globe. Then something unexpected happened. Humans did not panic. They did not run screaming into the streets. They did not fall to their knees in fear. Instead, they laughed. In coffee shops across Europe, people shook their heads and smiled. In factories across Asia, workers joked about the aliens' dramatic speech. In homes across the Americas, families looked at each other and shrugged. They had expected chaos. They had expected terror. What they received instead was something they had never encountered in their 6,000 years of conquering other species. They received complete and total confidence from humanity. Admiral Wei sat in the United Earth Defense Command Center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Her silver hair was tied back in a tight bun, and her dark eyes studied the holographic display floating before her. She had spent 40 years preparing for this moment. Everyone had called her paranoid. Everyone had laughed at her theories about ancient aliens returning someday. Nobody was laughing now. "Show me their fleet," she commanded. The hologram expanded to reveal 3,000 warships positioned just beyond the orbit of Mars. Each ship was massive, covered in smooth curves and glowing with blue energy. They looked beautiful. They looked deadly. They looked exactly like the ancient paintings humans had discovered in Egyptian tombs and Mayan temples centuries ago. Admiral smiled. "Contact President," she said calmly. "Tell him we are ready to respond." Across the world, humanity moved with purpose. But it was not the panicked scrambling of a frightened species. It was the calm, organized movement of a civilization that had been quietly preparing for this exact scenario for over 200 years. The truth was simple. Humanity had discovered the were real back in 1947 when a damaged scout ship crashed in New Mexico. The governments of the world had recovered alien technology from that crash and dozens of others over the following decades. They had studied it. They had understood it. And most importantly, they had improved upon it. For 2 centuries, the greatest minds on Earth had worked in secret facilities around the globe. They had reverse-engineered propulsion systems and made them 3 times more efficient. They had studied weapons and created defenses that could stop them. They had examined biology and developed countermeasures that would be devastating. The thought they were returning to a primitive world of hairless apes. They had no idea that those hairless apes had been preparing for war since before their great-grandparents were born. High Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He was the most decorated warrior in history, having conquered 37 different species across the galaxy. This mission to Earth should have been simple. These humans were primitive creatures, barely capable of leaving their own planet. The entire conquest was supposed to take less than a week. But something was wrong. "Commander," his sensor officer reported with obvious confusion in his voice. "We are detecting unusual activity on the far side of Earth's moon." Turn slowly. What kind of activity? "Unknown energy signatures, ship signatures, "Commander, there appear to be thousands of them." Before could respond, the darkness behind the moon began to glow. Ships emerged from hidden bases carved into the lunar surface. Human ships, but these were not the primitive rockets had expected. These were sleek, powerful vessels that moved with impossible speed and grace. They flowed out from behind the moon like a river of silver and gold, forming battle lines that stretched across the void of space. "Impossible," whispered. "This is impossible." Admiral's face appeared on the communication screens. She looked calm, almost bored. "High Commander," she said, "on behalf of the United Earth Defense Force, I am here to reject your surrender demand. You made a terrible mistake coming back here. You should have checked on us more often during those 6,000 years. A lot has changed." The human fleet numbered over 8,000 vessels. Could not understand how such a thing was possible. His intelligence reports showed that humans had only a few hundred primitive space stations and bases. Where had these ships come from? "You are bluffing," growled. "Your vessels cannot match our technology. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. You are nothing but children playing with toys." Admiral's smile grew wider. "Let me show you what these children can do." The battle began. Human ships moved in formations that seemed impossible. They danced between weapons fire with grace that physics. Their shields absorbed attacks that should have destroyed them instantly. And their weapons were devastating. Watched in horror as the first wave of his fleet crumbled. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Escape pods launched only to be captured by human vessels. In less than an hour, 300 of his ships were destroyed or disabled. "How is this possible?" demanded. "Our weapons should be cutting through their hulls like paper." His science officer's voice trembled. "Commander, their technology is based on ours, but they have improved it beyond anything we thought possible. Their ships are faster, their weapons are stronger, their shields are more advanced. They have had 6,000 years to develop these improvements." The realization struck like a physical blow. They had made a terrible miscalculation. They had assumed that any species they uplifted would remain inferior forever. They had never considered that given enough time, a clever species might surpass their teachers. Humans had not just caught up to they had left them far behind. On Earth, people watched the battle unfold on their screens. They cheered as human ships outmaneuvered the alien invaders. They celebrated as vessels surrendered one after another. Children pointed at the sky and laughed with joy. Elderly men and women wiped tears from their eyes, knowing that their lifelong secret preparations had finally paid off. The battle lasted only 16 hours. When it ended, over 2,000 ships had been captured or destroyed. The remaining enemy vessels fled toward the outer edges of the solar system, desperately trying to escape. They did not get far. Human ships had been waiting behind Jupiter's moons. Another hidden fleet emerged to cut off the retreat. They found themselves surrounded on all sides by vessels that should not have existed, crewed by beings they had dismissed as primitive. High Commander sat alone on his damaged bridge. His crew was either dead or captured. His mighty flagship drifted powerlessly through space, its engines destroyed and its weapons melted. He stared at the communication screen as Admiral's face appeared once more. "You asked how this was possible," Admiral said. "Let me explain. When you visited Earth 6,000 years ago, you made the mistake of underestimating us. You saw animals. We were more than animals. We were survivors. We adapted. We learned. We grew." She leaned closer to the screen. "Every challenge you left behind, we solved. Every bit of knowledge you planted, we expanded. Your crashed ships over the centuries gave us blueprints. Your ancient temples gave us clues. We knew you would return someday. We knew you would expect easy prey. So we prepared. For 200 years we built in secret. We trained in secret. We waited." Found his voice. "What will you do with us now?" "That depends on you. Your empire has ruled through fear, that ends today. We are taking your fleet, we are taking your technology, and we are coming for your empire. Felt genuine terror for the first time in his long life. You cannot threaten the empire. We control thousands of systems, millions of ships, billions of soldiers. Admiral shook her head slowly. You still do not understand. We have studied your culture. We know your empire is held together by fear. The species you conquered hate you. They only obey because they believe you cannot be defeated. But we just defeated you. When they learn what happened here today, everything will change. She was right. Knew she was right. The moment news of this battle reached the Empire's many subjugated worlds, rebellions would begin. Species that had lived in chains for thousands of years would rise up with new hope in their hearts. You are not just defeating us, said quietly. You are destroying everything we built. We are freeing everyone you enslaved, Admiral corrected. There is a difference. Your empire was built on stolen lives and broken spirits. It deserves to fall. In the weeks that followed, humanity did exactly what Admiral had promised. They broadcast recordings of the battle across every communication channel. They sent ambassadors to enslaved worlds, offering friendship and alliance. They shared their technology freely with species who had suffered under rule for. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Rebellions erupted across the empire. Slaves threw off their chains. Soldiers refused to fight. The ruling council, faced with complete collapse, surrendered unconditionally. Humans had not simply won a battle. They had ended an empire that had dominated the galaxy for 6,000 years, and they had done it in less than a month. The galaxy would never be the same. For the first time in recorded history, a new power had emerged among the stars, a power that had risen from nothing, a power that refused to be conquered, a power that would rather die than kneel. They had made a fatal mistake all those years ago. They had given fire to humans and expected gratitude. Instead, they had created their own destroyers. Humanity had finally taken its place among the stars, not as servants or slaves or children, but as equals, as leaders, as the species that brought down an empire and freed the galaxy. And they were just getting started.